So we're now live, I believe. Welcome to Recruiters Hangout, everybody. Our Christmas festive special. It's going to be a great show today. We're talking about expert recruitment insights into business success planning for 2016. Very excited to have a couple of stars of the industry with us. Andy Lord, COO and founder of the Rethink Group, and I'll ask Andy to tell us a bit more about his role and the Rethink Group in a bit. And Alex Moyle is here from Elevated Recruiting and Selzig Consulting, and we've been wanting to get Alex on the show for ages, and now he's here. So good to have you both here. Alex, if you can tell us a bit more about yourself in a minute as well. Just a bit of background on the show. If you are watching, you can see on this side of the screen on your right, the stream, the Webinar Jam stream. You'll be able to join the conversation on there live. Ask us questions, comments, boo, cheer, whatever you like. Pass it on, and I'll pass it on to Mark, who today, by the way, Mark Stevens here from Smart Recruit Online, is hosting the show. Alan's away meeting a client somewhere. Good for him. Good for Alan. But Mark's here today to take over instead. We've also got Louise, although I haven't seen her yet, from UK Recruiter, who are also a sponsor. And hopefully she'll be on Twitter monitoring the hashtag RecHangout. Here Louise has just come on the show. Do join in the conversation on Twitter, RecHangout. And I'll also pass your questions and comments on to Mark here. I think that's all. I'm really welcome from Colleague Software. I'll probably be listening mostly today rather than saying much, but it should be a good show. Mark, I'll pass it over to you to begin the show.
Thanks, Louis, and hello everybody. Hi guys, thanks for coming on today. I think it's that time of the year, isn't it? We're all either just thinking about business plans halfway through them or have recently completed them, so it should be very topical for everybody. I know we've got a day put aside tomorrow for all of our staff to start putting their business plans together, so I'm hoping to pick up one or two last-minute bits of advice myself today. So just to get started, let's give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourselves. Alex, would you like to go first? Just a couple of minutes, tell us a bit about yourself, what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Alex Moyle. I run Elevated Recruiting, which is part of Selzig Consulting. So we specialise in providing learning and development solutions for recruitment businesses that are looking to grow. Primarily deliver online solutions, but blended with face-to-face interaction as well. I've also been in the industry for 18 years and spent a lot of that either working at desk as a biller myself or as a manager, director, and a lot of troubleshooting, going into locations to help people do better and turn their performance around. So we do that day in, day out for companies now and get people the skills that they need to be successful. And whilst it's a pretty good market out there at the moment, there's a lot of competition and you've got to fight the commoditization as well. So, but I'm really pleased to be here, and as I said, I'm in business planning mode myself and helping a lot of my clients with business planning, so happy to share some of those insights today.
Great, thanks Alex. Andy, would you like to give us a quick introduction to yourself, please?
Sure, hi, I'm Andy Lord. I'm one of the founders of the Rethink Group. We're the award-winning Rethink Group. I have to say, we just picked up our Best Place to Work award last night, actually, so the timing was brilliant. Under 250 people, I have to add, and not across the entire planet. I think it's just for recruitment businesses. So I'm a 20-year veteran of the industry. I think it might be more than that, but I just say around 20 to try and hide my age. And I'm the COO, and I also have the job title of CPO, Chief People Officer. No reference to Star Wars. The Chief People Officer across our group. We are around 200 people, and the last 2 or 3 weeks for myself has been consumed actually with business planning, financial modelling, putting our people strategy together. So I'm hoping I can give you and everybody else who's interested, some real live and up-to-date, hot off the press kind of ways that we've approached it.
Great, well that sounds like a perfect place to start then. While you're hot, while you're on a roll, so give us an insight into where people should start if they haven't started putting their business plan together yet. Where's the starting point?
Okay. Thanks for that. Thanks for throwing me that huge hot potato question. I guess the very first thing you should do is decide what your business plan is trying to achieve. So at Rethink, we have a number of approaches. So one, as you would expect, will be financial modelling. And I've seen, excuse me, in my time in recruitment, people believe that that is a business plan, a set of numbers on a spreadsheet to deliver an amount of profit or revenue or turnover being described as a business plan. We see it as just a facet or a component part. So of course we do that. But our overarching business plan is about where do we think the group needs to be in 24 months is a realistic timescale for us. After that, you know, the world changes so quickly. So where do we see the group's trajectory for 24 months? And what do we want to be reading about ourselves in the trade press or in social media or on our email feed? What do we want to be reading about ourselves December 2017? Which I know is a massive ask, but you know that's where we start from. So then we break it into our component bits, which is financial modelling. What do we think those numbers should look like? We talk about customers and the blend of customers that we want to be trading with. And when I say blend, I don't mean that in just the types. We have existing that we're trying to develop and grow. So we put a business plan together to say our top target customers that are in our portfolio, where do we think we can get them and how do we get them there? What kind of services would they want to buy from us and how can we add the most value to them? We talk about customers in terms of the ones that aren't in our portfolio today, but we think that we could do great things with, and our approach to that. How do we get in front of the right people and share our experiences? So that forms part of our business plan. We have a people element, which is typically my bit in the company. Where on the journey are our people, and how should we get them better and better equipped to face the changing times in recruitment? So actually I know Alex, he's done some great work with us over the last few years, and he's kind of been the catalyst for some of that, and then we're going to take that forward, and hopefully later I'll get to tell you about some of the granular stuff that we've done, which I think is, I know it's groundbreaking for our industry, that also forms part of our plan. And then I guess we also have a look at reward and motivation. That forms part of our business plan. And underneath all of those, we are really keen to make it the company's business plan rather than the guys with the grey hair, which unfortunately now I am one of, sitting in a room saying what we want. It should be the objectives of our people. So does that answer?
Yeah, very comprehensively. I think there's a really good range of different objectives there that you've outlined and components within it. One thing that just jumped into my mind that you didn't mention, I'm sure it is within your business plan. Do you start at the beginning with looking at how you performed last year, and so that you've got a set of data and information there that you can analyse, so that you can start to identify the areas in particular that you want to move forward in? Does that form an important component in the discussion?
The short answer is yes. We look at performance not only at a group level. There's a danger when you are of a certain size and scale. There's a danger that you just look at the bottom right-hand corner of the master spreadsheet and see that you've made X million pounds profit and say, we need to keep improving that. And that comes back from our days of being listed on the AIM stock market. You know, that was a stated result for us. You have to deliver profits above and beyond the profits that you did in the last period. This year, so 2015 was a kind of a pivotal year for us. It was the launch of our talent management brand. And I know this isn't supposed to be a big plug for Rethink, so I'll try not to do too much. But it was a stated aim of the board to say that we need to change with the changing times about how we approach delivering services to our customers. The Rethink of 10, 11 years ago was firmly in the world of transactional technology-based recruitment, IT recruitment, and the aim was to have 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 great customers who used us exclusively and spent a lot of money with us, and in return expected a really, really high level of service. As we all know, the market has changed considerably, and to keep up with that, we produced a brand that better encapsulated what we were trying to do for our larger corporate customers. So talent management is our particular phrase. So although the answer is yes, we have a look at a set of financials in our talent management business, because it's new in title, it's not necessarily new in concept to us. Some of our talent management customers have been with us for 5 or 6 years. We look at evolving the service and having a look at the service lines that we have and how we can improve and add additional ones. And some of those don't actually give you a bigger financial return. In fact, they cost us money to implement. But we know for the 24-month plan that if we get that right in 2016, we kind of see the fruits of that in 2017. So the answer is yes, we do use financials as we need to improve, but not necessarily just at the bottom right-hand corner of the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, I am going to come back to you in a second, Alex, because I'm going to start the question again. But this is quite interesting, and I don't want to lose the flow of the conversation. So yeah, it wasn't just about financials. Obviously, you look at the financials for the previous year, but I think you alerted to the fact there that you wanted a change in strategy. So you obviously identified that having a strategy that focused on half a dozen very good customers and raising your game to those customers wasn't the strategy that you wanted to take forward. I'm going to ask you more questions on that in a bit, but I think that really needs to be linked with how you then get the staff following the plan as well and implementing the plan, because delivering on the coalface obviously requires all the staff to buy into the change of strategy if that's what you're going to execute.
Yeah, so I am reluctant to say that we have 2 halves in our company, because that's not quite how we see it. We have a base of recruitment consultants and delivery people who work in, I think the standard word would be a contingent recruitment market, and that's what Rethink is famous for. That's kind of our background, if you like, and people come to us knowing that they can spend a small fee with us, a one-off transaction, and feel like they're not going to be massively sold to say we want everything. We don't, we're very keen to work in a one-off way. And so for those guys, the business plan is around developing them about how can we get them in front of more customers, how can we give them the skills and the tools of the trade. In our talent management business, the plan is all around customer excellence. We're changing the reward mechanism so that our people who work in talent management for us.
Following that point though, Andy, because we're going to go into the candidate topic in a bit.
Okay.
Just come off track at the start of the business plan process.
Okay.
I know we spoke before the show that there's an interesting topic there, so we will come back to it. Just hold that thought. And I want to bring Alex in at this point. I know that Andy's been quite thorough in terms of the components within his business plan. Was there anything there that you thought that you would add to that in terms of how you get started? I mean, maybe I think a positive approach. How would you advise somebody?
I think the keys to the approach that Andy's outlined so far. First one is that there's 3 things you've got to think about. How do you win? What clients are you going to win? Who do you need to retain? And how are you going to expand the ones that have potential to do so? And that links to looking at actually where you are today. And the greater your ambition, the greater the level of growth you're expecting, the greater the gap from where you are today to where you want to be in the future, which means the more detailed your plan has to be to justify how you're going to go from A to B. And so, and Andy talked about just looking at the bottom line on the bottom right-hand corner. For everyone, the more you can look at not only those individual customers, but the individual consultants or the teams that you've got within each branch, and think realistically, what do we think they've got in the tank to deliver? because there'll be someone that's doing 100 grand that you think, you know what, they've got 200 in the tank. There's those that are doing 150 and are probably delivering more or less about what they're gonna get. A lot of businesses make the mistake where they take what they've done and just add 20% and go, that's the plan next year, and then make everything fit that. And whilst that pleases the stock market, as Andy knows from his time being listed, the reality is everyone else below that just feels that there's no point being engaged in the process if you're going to be told it's 20%. So I think that breaking it down for who are we going to retain, who are we going to expand, and who do we need to win, and that win could be not only new customers, but it could be new service lines. So Andy's business plan for talent management is probably much more detailed for attraction, because they're trying to sort of go out and win more of those clients, than maybe it is expansion, where maybe they've already got clients that they're maybe looking to sort of retain and deliver to. So but I think the component parts of that we'll talk about a bit later when it comes to sort of thinking about individuals' goals. How does reward and recognition support that and motivate people to execute that plan?
I think it's a good job that we structured this conversation before we came on air, because it's so tempting to get straight into sort of, you know, how we're going to influence the people working for us. A quick question for either of you. You know, how much time should people put aside for doing their business plans? You know, and when do you think they should be starting this? You know, considering it's kicking off in 1st of Jan. Alex, do you want to go first?
So I think Andy put his hand up. So
thank you.
Very good.
How much time? I think you can't put enough time into it. There is, of course, a danger of if you spend months and months business planning, you actually don't do any business. So I also get that, and it has to be about how much resource you have available. And it can't be too granular, otherwise you have a feeling that you've put so much into it that you're not allowed, if you like, to stop and say this isn't working. And I've been there. I've been in a world where you make it so prescriptive that actually the business plan becomes the thing that runs your business rather than the people in it. But I think a key to it is don't rush. Don't try and do it in an hour. Don't do it on the back of the proverbial fag packet. Get the people who need to implement the plan to contribute to the plan. And most people, I think, at this time of year are winding down for Christmas. So now's a great time. It's a great time to get people who are a bit tired, a bit frazzled, have had a great year or even not such a great year, together and do it in a nice, relaxed way. But don't try and think you can finish it in a day. We try and put the headlines up, then go away and have a sleep on it and see if we still think that those are the headlines the day after. And if they are, then try and flesh out the detail.
And I'm guessing, sorry, Andy, Alex, I'll come to you in just a second. I'm guessing it's not quite the same for staff. You know, we do have to control a little bit how much time they do spend on their own individual plans.
Yeah, and kind of our approach is to try and give everybody an end of year review. All of the staff will have a review with their team leader or manager, and part of that end of year review should be a retrospective look at what you did and what you didn't do and why you did or didn't do it, and then what it's going to look like going forward. Except with our recruiters, we don't really call them business plans. I don't mean that because they wouldn't understand the terminology. If you work in the world of recruitment, things change every day. So I like it to be more of a plan of how they're going to improve and upskill themselves, rather than just like Alex said earlier, let's add 20% because you think you should be billing more.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alex, I cut you off there.
No, it's okay. So, I mean, I think Andy sort of the best bit about what Andy said was talking about going away and sleeping on it. And often business planning isn't about the amount of time you spend in one go. It's about the amount of time you give yourself to reflect on what you've written and see whether it still makes sense and whether other people have a chance to contribute to it. When you start the planning process too late, you end up feeling like you've just got to get it done, and then you don't get a chance to really challenge yourself. And often the things you wrote on a train last night won't make sense on Monday, because actually you'll think that's not realistic, or actually I could probably do a bit more of this, I could do a bit more of that. So the planning process is really about putting down a set of statements or things you think you can achieve, and then actually giving yourself over a period of weeks the opportunity to tweak those and think, actually, is that real? So from my own perspective, as we plan next year, we're planning to transition more from being a face-to-face training company to more online delivery. And so part of that is that it's deciding, well, what are our online products? And actually, as you think about what the online products are, you then go and talk to people about those products. You work out what is of interest and what isn't. And so because we started that process 6-8 weeks ago, we're able to sort of get a feeling for what the market feels about those plans, but also the team feels in terms of their comfort in delivering it. So I think it's not about the intense, it's about giving yourself time to tweak it over a period. So when the deadline comes, you can feel like you're committed to that plan. Equally, once the plan's on the go, once all best laid plans sort of sometimes fall apart when reality comes. And so you're going to be continually tweaking that plan through the year to make sure it reflects the situation and the market that you're in. And that's what I guess the difference is between doing a budget and a forecast, is that the forecast is the accurate reflection of what you think you're actually going to do in relation to the plan that you had when you started the year.
So I'm guessing that a forecast forms part of that business plan anyway. So personally, you guys, do you actually schedule times in, maybe quarterly, maybe just before that quarterly board meeting, to go and review the business plan, make assessments as to how you're doing? How do you bring that back into life and make sure that you're having a reality check against it on a regular basis? Anyone?
Well, our dynamic in the company has changed recently, so I can tell you how I know it has to work, rather than maybe how I would write it in my own script. Rethink, when we delisted and we came off the AIM stock market, we took some investment with the Business Growth Fund, and part of that investment was around our acquisition strategy. So anybody who's prepared to invest the kind of money that BGF do in an organization expect you to have a written business plan, and expect you bi-monthly to come back and tell them where you are on that plan, why you are doing what you're doing, and why perhaps you haven't done the things that you said you were going to do. And we are accountable for it. So, you know, there's a few, whether you are, I think we're classed as a corporate now, aren't you? Whether you are a corporate or a small business, 2 or 3 of you working together, you have to feel accountable, don't you? And I think making somebody accountable for the business plan is really important. And I'm a huge believer in collaboration, but ultimately somebody has to sign off to say, I will, because it's my job, deliver on this and report back and tell you what we're doing and why we're doing.
Okay. I see. That's interesting. I mean, bi-monthly, I was actually quite shocked that you said you check in that regularly. I mean, we're going through funding at the moment, so almost like our funding prospectus is a sort of a watered-down version, or maybe a more confined version of our business plan. So I feel like I'm continually reading it and looking at it. And in fact, I've started putting the business plan together for next year, and it's all pretty much there in my head. It's coming out pretty quickly, you know, in terms of I've got access to all the data and information that's going into it. So yeah, bi-monthly. And when you say accountability, that person, how do they become accountable bi-monthly? Because I could imagine a monthly management meeting where you could sit there and, you know, reflect on, you know, the outcomes to your peers. But how does it become accountable on a bi-monthly basis?
Yeah, I think it's worth bearing in mind that the business plan will translate into day-to-day meaningful metrics or KPIs that you support. So actually the business is talking about aspects or components of that business plan every day. And so Andy's ultimately responsible bi-monthly for the delivery of that business plan. But he has a managing director or 2 managing directors that he probably speaks to every month about the components of their business plan to check they're on track. Those managing directors probably speak to their regional managers on a bi-weekly basis to check they're doing the things that they need to do to deliver on the business plan. And they're probably speaking to their managers and the consultants daily or weekly on the things that they do. And so what Andy would do, or business people should do, is that accountability should go through the organization. And the need of your business plan to have an understanding of what the consultant at desk needs to be doing every day, and how that then cumulatively sort of contributes to the wider goal. Andy can't wave that whole business plan in front of his MD's face and expect him to be motivated about it. But the MD will be motivated by maybe some acquisition goals or maybe a retention stat. And so, again, if it's a business plan, you live and breathe that plan every day. There's no point if you write a plan and then you never look at it again. Well, there's no point in doing it really. It's your goals, it's your wishes, it's your ambitions, it's what you think and believe is achievable. And so people should be talked to about that every day, or their role in that anyway.
Okay, right, thanks for that. We've got some questions that are coming through. There's a couple that I've spotted which we're going to bring into the second half of the discussion, which is more about how the staff put their plans together and how that reflects the overall business plan. But John put a question to you guys, said, what value do you have in succession planning within the business planning activities? Andy, did you want to have a go at that one?
I'm trying to understand what I think that means. What value do you have in succession planning within your business planning activities? What value do you place on succession planning?
I think that's what he means. Yes, I'm reading it word for word as he's covered from the group chat.
I guess it depends on what you're trying to achieve with your business. So I know I keep giving a rethink answer, and that's too narrow. So from a broader context, a business stands still, absolutely. I know it's a very big cliche, but it's really true. If there aren't people in your organization who are being upskilled and ready to take on a bigger role, your business is going to stay exactly where it is. You have nowhere to go, and you're relying on the goodwill of people to stay with you. In the recruitment industry, you see the waves of people. So people arrive and they want to learn to be a great recruiter, and that means different things to different people. So you have a duty as a business owner to try and take your people on a journey to see what their potential is. And then classically, I think in recruitment, but probably in lots of organizations, people want to try and become a leader or a manager. They get because of their interest in people, they see that as a way to develop their skill sets. The only way you can take your staff and make them leaders is if you have people coming through the doors to be led by them. There's no point in making somebody a leader of just themselves. It's just a job title. And so the answer is, unless you've decided you want to stand still, and I don't know many businesses that do that, unless you want to stand still, you have to look at succession planning as a day-to-day activity. So for me, it isn't necessarily in our business plan, but it is in the plan of our reward and how we take our business forward. It's just kind of something that we know has to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think now listening to your answer, he probably is talking about recruiting generally. So you're going to need an extra 20 heads in the business to meet the goals. How much of that is planning for individuals to grow into those positions, and how much of it is planning probably the recruitment going forward? So I'm guessing recruitment is a component within the business plan for you guys as well.
I mean, I think if you think about it, a year one recruiter will. A business will grow when you've got a good number of people doing somewhere between 120 and 180k a year. So the individuals you bring in 2016 will probably deliver somewhere between 60 and 80, but they need to be your 150, 200k billers next year. And often business owners forget the fact that when they lose a new consultant after 6 months, they might think, oh, I've only lost 10k a month, or I've only lost sort of 4k a month. But actually what they've lost as an opportunity cost is 150 grand next year. And you can't magic a 360 recruiter from nowhere. They take time to develop from a technical skill perspective, from their ability to manage themselves. And so Andy will be thinking further ahead like that. Equally, there'll be business owners on the call that might have a wish at some point for someone to buy them, to exit. And if the business can't run without you there, the likelihood of someone coming in to buy you is unlikely. The reason being is that there's not a lot of residual value in a recruitment business if it doesn't exist outside of the owners. And I guess what's helped Rethink as they've grown, and as I've worked with them, is that they've done a great job of building a group of leaders below them that run the business every day. And whilst we wouldn't want Andy to be hit by a bus, if he was hit by a bus, the business would still make money and it would still grow. And that's actually what Andy was working towards, because really, if someone came in and offered a pot of cash, that business will exist. The business they're buying something that doesn't exist on Andy. And so everything, especially when you're between say 10 and 30 consultants is about succession planning. And one of the biggest reasons why recruiters get stuck at that 10 to 15 consultant mark is that it can't become any bigger than the strings that they can pull every day. You need to build that infrastructure and have that succession plan to allow you to be able to let the business run when you're not there. I'm not sure whether you've got any thoughts, Andy.
Well, I'm just sending you a message to say if I get run over by a bus later, I'm going to know who was driving it. So it's a really good point. So Steve Wright, our CEO, he's much older than me, and I know he won't be listening, so I feel like I can say what I want. And as it's nearly Christmas, I sort of don't care either. So, so he talks about the millennials. He makes me feel really old, but he talks about the millennials, and because I know we have kids of a similar age who are the millennials, and he talks about their drive and ambition. And I think it's fair to say, when I started in recruitment, it feels like one of those when I was a lad stories list, doesn't it? When I started in recruitment, the whole sales pitch of the entry into the industry was about how much money you might earn. You know, back in the days, whether you thought they were good, bad, or indifferent, it's not for me to say, but back in the olden days of recruitment, the recruiting policy was about you could earn 100 grand in 3 years. You know, that was kind of, that's how the advert was written. You know, mine was in the Manchester Evening News rather than on social media. So I saw that. It's fair to say that these days, people who come into for a career in recruitment come in and they are already thinking about, where can this career take me? If I do 5 years here, where can that take me? Where can I be next? And so succession planning, I feel, I know I said a little bit before, succession planning at every level is just what has to happen now. It's no longer the preserve of the forward-thinking business. It is business for me.
Well, it's interesting because we're going to wrap up for the first half of this and probably get Louis to do a quick refresh for us if he can remember all the topics of conversation. That, you know, an important part of planning for businesses is planning for your exit as well. Putting all the preparation and the structure in place so that that can happen, or it makes you more of an attractive proposition. Well, Louis, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still here.
Some value for money out of you
listening.
Today, you know, it's a bit of a holiday coming over in Norfolk there. I hope you've been making some.
Norfolk millennial. I moved to Norwich. You know, ambitious. A quick refresh, right? Okay, well, on Twitter, I'd just like to say hi to Travis Research, Fatima, and I hope STEM graduates you've managed to get on as well, and Mark as well. So keep the questions coming. #RecHangout. And thanks for all the questions on the webinar jam. I think we've got one from Luke as well. But hi, Connor, John, and someone mysteriously called E from Utah. So I wonder who that is. So what's the next bit, Mark? You can refresh us on this. I think we're going to talk about individual planning and a bit about. I'd be quite interested how you communicate this grand vision to your managers and employees. I mean, we're only 20 people, and it's hard enough with 20 people to get everyone pulling in the same direction sometime, and that accountability. So a bit on that would be quite interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think you managed to avoid the refresh.
Did I? Well, sorry.
Don't worry, I'll let you keep your job.
You're very good at refreshes yourself, Mark.
No, but I mean, we covered quite a lot in that first session around sort of, you know, the business owners and the bit from the business perspective, the components that these guys would focus on. And I think that's right. It leads nicely into how the business plan can then be taken and be reflected in the individuals that work for you. So let's go straight in. Alex, I'm going to go to you first this time. Talk to me about what your thoughts are in regards to getting staff to put together some form of business plan. I know Andy was saying that he doesn't call it a business plan when it's for staff, but we'll call it this for the purpose of the show today. You know, and I've seen something that you've sent me as well, which I've been interestingly looking through, into which I think we'll get Louise to share with people afterwards in her follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the at the heart of it is that too often most businesses don't ask people actually what people want from working there. So most people turn up to work every day to do a good job, maybe to learn a little bit, maybe to get a bit of satisfaction, but more than anything, they're probably looking for to get something that helps them get what they want out of life. And so when working with an individual about their business plan or their goals for the year, and I always prefer the word goal rather than target, because goal is owned by the individual and target is owned by the company. It's about how close are the executive team and the managers to what individuals actually want from their time at work. What are they going to spend their money on? Everyone talks about money motivation in recruitment, but actually, why are they money motivated? What purpose does that serve? Do they want to retire early? Do they want to buy a new pair of shoes? Do they want to buy a house? Is it that they support their family? You know, and understanding the purpose of really what makes people want to work hard is really the place that all business plans should start. Because what then a manager can do is then talk about how the next 12 months can be spent them doing things at their desk or in their jobs that enable them to get what they want out of life. Because we especially millennials, you can't be on them every minute of every day like maybe my manager was on me, or Andy's manager was on him. You know, you've got to make them want to do the job every day when you're not there, because you're just not able to manage that many people. And so the closer you link what their expectations are from their job to what they want out of life, the greater the likelihood they are to do it when you're not there. And so the business plan, or you know what, it's just the conversation. It's the career conversation or the life conversation about checking that what they want is actually what you're going to be able to help them get through at work. And so that's really the starting point for any conversation that links individuals' behaviour and actions to your own business plan.
Now, this quite interests me. Sorry if I could jump in a second, because that must start with knowing what you're about as a group of people. And individuals are a complicated bunch, human beings. Bringing a group together and then understanding what motivates your employees must start with the leaders of a business going, this is what we're about, this is where we're going. And recruiting actually the right people that match that vision in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that at the heart of that, especially in agency recruitment, is that there's a lot of just average recruiters out there, and bringing together your team to sort of get a clarity of purpose as to why you're different and why you bring more value to the market than anyone else. Rethink's done a great job of that. Andy articulated that even in a couple of the things that he said already, and it's what is your identity as a group that makes you different from everybody else. And the greater the level of identity, again, the greater the buy-in and also the loyalty to the organisation. So, I mean, Andy's probably got some thoughts. He's grown a business, and there's definitely a distinctive culture within Rethink. So, what do you think, Andy?
Well, thanks for that hospital pass, Alex. Well, I'll tell you something that we had no idea the power of in terms of bringing people together, and how it's kind of transformed some of our thinking in business. Outside of work, I do some things with charity, so I don't want to talk about that particularly. But what it did do is spark a conversation in our organisation about whether we as a collection of people do enough. And I'm a bit of a soapboxer about, you know, all of the cuts that affect our great country. Kind of when it trickles down to normally those less fortunate. They see the worst of the cuts, and so we had a bit of a all staff debate on our company intranet about whether we should do more for charity. It was just a general discussion, and I have, like you have here, I have a notice board forum on our intranet where I pose a question and then get our staff to talk about it. You often find that the people who are quietest in a room, who don't feel like they have a forum or don't have the courage of the conviction to come and knock on a door and want to talk about something, you give a notice board or an intranet opportunity. Our keyboard warriors, you know, they then have lots to say, and it's often really insightful and heartfelt. We made a challenge to ourselves next year where we want to give a combined 100 days paid leave across the group for charitable endeavours. And it's created this thing in our business, this wall of energy of people who would never normally get involved in the traditional salesy type activities, who can go and drink the most in a pub. You know, that kind of used to be what everybody was about, wasn't it? Now it's about who can be the most creative and do wonderful things. And apart from being really proud of it, I think from a how do you get your staff to all be following a message, gone are the days of the boss, whoever he or she might be, saying this is who we are. It now needs to be developed from the people that you have, make them feel responsible for the company's identity. I see myself as the conductor rather than the guy that writes the orchestral score. And I think that things like that in a business, whilst they don't necessarily form part of a business plan, you could argue that they do, that they are the most important component parts of your business plan. We work in a people industry, and if they're not engaged, they'll go and find somewhere that they can be better engaged.
This is an interesting topic, because I was going to ask you about retention of staff, and I suppose finding your own unique things that you can get your staff to buy into, which helps create an identity. It doesn't always have to be about the delivery of the service that the business is there to perform. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago when I was looking after F10, I'd read the book Fish. I don't know if ever you guys have read that, and it's about a group of people on a fish market and how they made themselves the best fish sellers there were in the world, and they're now internationally renowned, and people come from all over the world to go and see these guys selling fish on a stand. But they had a number of concepts behind it all, which people turned into business ideas, and we decided to take that and give people responsibilities and put them into teams of coming up with ideas to improve the company, improve client engagement, candidate experience, all that sort of stuff. And it was a really interesting period. Got people really engaged, and probably out of the whole 15 years with that company, that was probably the time when I felt we pulled together most. So I'm definitely feeling what you're saying about the charity thing, because it doesn't necessarily have to be work orientated. So, but I took some on a side chat there. So retention of staff is obviously going to be an important part of the company business plan, but I'm guessing you have to think about this as well when you're helping the individuals put their business plans together, because if they feel that they've got goals as opposed to targets and objectives and things that they want to achieve, then there's more of a reason for them to be there. Where does that manifest itself in terms of how you help them put their business plans together for you guys?
Shall I take this first, or over to you, Alex? Okay. So I said, didn't I, that in our at the consultant we try and not call it a business plan, but I know the documentation is probably one we've nicked off Alex. Talks about business planning, but somebody said it earlier on. It's more for me about being able to see what their aspirations are and helping them achieve their aspirations. And I know that sounds really, really soft, and I'm the kind of we work in sales, and there has to be an element of you've got to pay for your desk. You know, there is a big cost behind hiring a recruitment consultant and developing them through their career. But our business planning session is exactly that. It's about, let's look at the customers that we're working with, and let's see if you've been to speak to those guys. It's all right. I think one of the questions before was about do managers and leaders listen to the consultants, and I think that the two things are the same thing. Sitting down with someone and say, how can I get you to bill 150,000 or 250,000 feels like a rather cold place to start, and I think that's 10 years ago's thinking. Sitting down with someone and saying, okay, who are your customers and why are they your customers and what are they talking to you about, and how can we get you in front of them to share your thoughts, to talk about how much time that you have in any given day and how much of that time can you dedicate to working with that particular client, and almost getting your clients to write the business plan from a financial perspective for your consultants, I think is something that we do a lot of at Rethink. But we're very keen on flexible working, and you have to be careful when you say that, because people the hair stands on end and they get really frightened about what flexible working can be. We're all together today having a group chat in different parts of the country, and it feels like we're all in the same office. And therefore, flexible working these days isn't quite what it used to be. And so we talk to people about, you know, their life plans. I've been really keen and conscious to bring people back into the industry, working mums who gave up their career in recruitment to go and be a mum, and then have realised that coming back in, selling your soul to the proverbial devil, having to do a 10-hour shift in an office, plus a commute, plus a baby pick-up and drop-off, plus etc., etc. What's happened is there's been a loss to the industry. I don't know how many thousands of people, but a loss to the industry of brilliantly talented parents who just simply can't make the world of recruitment work. So when I bring those back in, and when we've done that really successfully, my business plan with them is just about what's your life commitment? How can we make sure we can fit into your life commitment, and then work out then how many hours are left for us? And so it feels like it's a different approach, I think.
So Andy, so that sounds great theoretically, but at the back of your head, you need that person to bill a certain amount of money to get a return on the investment that you're making. So how do you balance that conversation, which is very holistic, with the realities of delivering to the shareholders?
Yeah, and you are right, it is very holistic. We've gone for transparency. We like transparency, and so I like an employee of mine to understand what their cost really is. Most people think it's a cost of, this is my salary and maybe my car allowance. But we like to share with people, you know, the cost of employing somebody, not in a scary way, but just in a real way. And so one of the mums, actually she's starting with us in January, one of the mums that's coming back, we worked backwards with her. We talked about her historic performance. We looked at the kind of customers that she could work with. We looked at about how many hours she thought she could fit into our day, and kind of worked backwards to say, well, if that's the case, your base salary will have to be this, because if these are the numbers we're thinking of. So we have a structure, don't get me wrong, and people who are kind of not taking up on our flexible employment, they have a base salary and it's within one band or another. People who need a more flexible approach, I think you have to be flexible in everything that you do with them. So it's just maths, unfortunately. It's just maths, as you rightly pointed out. If someone says, I can deliver £80,000 a year, you shouldn't say that makes you a bad recruiter. It's just reflected in how you get paid and how many hours you're going to do.
I'm just going to pull you back to the question a little bit, and it was all interesting, but how do we build retention into, you know, when we're thinking about how these people put their business plans together? Alex, do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at people primarily are motivated by three things, and Dan Pink in his book Drive talks about this. So people are motivated by autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy is feeling like they've got some control over what they're being asked to do every day. And so that's what you've got to talk to them about in terms of, does their job give them that, or have they earned the right for that? And sometimes people haven't earned the right, but you can show them that they can earn the right. Then you've got to think about purpose, which I spoke about earlier. And lastly, it's about mastery. And the document that will be available after this call isn't necessarily just about the number, but it's about what are their capabilities to deliver that number, and what capabilities do they need to develop in the coming year in order to help them achieve that number. And to a large extent, the number that people write on their goal is just a number, but it's the manager's responsibility, or how much the manager takes responsibility for giving the person the tools and techniques and the capability in order to achieve that. And so actually the planning process for a consultant is really about them thinking about, well, what do I need to be better at? What do I need to be better at next year than this year for me to maybe improve my fill ratio or to pick up a bit more business? And so how that links to retention is that most people will stay at a company where they feel like they're developing and growing. I spent 16 years with one organization, which is a lifetime. But I grew pretty much every day of that. And when I stopped feeling like I was growing was the time I started thinking about leaving. And so the business plan and the correlated development plan that comes with that is really what keeps people engaged. And if people feel they're learning with you and they're getting better and they're moving towards what they want, they'll stay with you through thick and thin, and they'll probably be your most loyal employee. The moment they think all you care about is what they've put on the board, is the time where they'll think whether they can find someone, whether find someone else that does care about them.
great answer, and love the reference to Daniel Pink, by the way. And if anybody's interested in going and have a look at some of the stuff that he does, it's really inspirational stuff. So let's take that idea then to the next level. So we've got the individual to outline how they're going to take control of their business life, how they're going to become experts at it, and they've got some vision as to where they want to go with it. So how do we then break it down at a more granular level to help them to do that? Because I noticed on this business plan that you've sent me a copy of, you've asked for information about what they've achieved in the previous year, and I do something very similar. I get the guys to specify not just sales but also activities as well, and look at conversions so that they can understand where they're benchmarked right now. Do you go to that degree yourselves?
A lot of it depends on the availability of the information. I'm a fan of metrics that are meaningful towards people's success, because I think they give you a gauge of how well what you get out of the effort you put in. But I'm not a fan of them when they're an end of themselves. So the key for when you use metrics, and a lot of the people listening to the call will have metrics in their business, is that the individuals need to see that as their metrics and their dashboard for success, not their manager's tool that they used to beat them with at the end of each month when they haven't been successful. So a lot of it depends. Again, it's how you use it. It's how you use the tools.
I was probably thinking more in context of, do you use it to help them to create some KPIs for themselves?
Yes.
You know, we all know that if people come up with their own figures, it's much more believable that they'll try and achieve them than if you just impose them upon people.
Yeah, and I think that the reality is that if you get them to create them for themselves, there'll be more ownership. But also is that most people are more ambitious about when they do it themselves, they're more ambitious than if you gave them a target. And actually, then your role as a manager comes to sort of winding down that expectation to make those goals more realistic, which again makes them feel like your role is to help them actually achieve their goal, rather than just set them something they can't achieve. If you asked everyone in your business to write down what they thought they'd do next year and added it together, it would massively exceed what your own business plan is. You know, and all your job is doing is just working out, helping people on how to actually achieve that, and rather than going from top down.
Okay, great. I'm going to go to Andy now, just ask him a question that somebody posted early on in the show. They were asking, do business owners really listen to the consultant's thoughts regarding what they're going to build next year? So if we give these people, give our staff or give our employees the opportunity to outline what they think they can achieve, you know, do we really take that on board? And either Alex or Andy?
Well, it's a good question, and I imagine the person that wrote it can answer it for themselves. The reason that they've wrote it is because they actually really wanted to write, because in my business that doesn't happen, because I keep telling my boss that I can do X and he tells me I've got to do Y. I'm sure that that's the full version of that statement. So the short answer is, if you don't, as a business owner, you're missing a trick, aren't you? If you're sat with somebody who says, I can only do this, as a business owner, you have to decide whether what they think they can do is enough for you, if that's going to achieve what you want them to achieve. Just because you give somebody a mythical number and say, people with your experience and the training I've given you, when Alex has done his amazing training for you, you should now be able to do 250,000. Just because we believe that, it doesn't make it true, does it? And so the answer to the question has to be yes, but Alex is right. An old-fashioned way of budgeting, so this isn't quite a business plan, but it's part of the business plan, used to be, write down a list of all of the names of your consultants in your organization. Take a look at what they did last year. Use that as about an average and say they're good for about £100,000 each, or 150. You add that number together, and if you delivered it, you would probably wildly exceed your own expectations. You can't foresee whether a customer is going to stop or spend more, and that's what the point I was making before. I try to, when I speak to our people, not talk to them about what do they think they can do, what do their customers expect from them, and if their customers don't feel like they're going to spend any money, quickly start talking about where we can get some new customers from, rather than just pluck a number from the air and say that's on a spreadsheet and therefore now that's your target.
You're on mute, Mark.
I started pressing a few buttons then, and all of a sudden I lost the screen. I thought, oh my God, this is going to be great. I get lost right at the end of the show. You could probably just see my face with panic on it. There's been some really good stuff that's come out today. I was just trying to find, Louis was trying to guide me towards some of the questions that have been coming up in the webinar jam, but I haven't got them on my screen. So I'm going to let Louis do that at the end. We've got about 5 minutes left before we wrap up, and somebody asked a really good question, which I think is a really nice way to wind up today's webinar. Louise asked, sorry, was it Louise? Catherine said, what is the most innovative thing that you have ever introduced or seen on a business plan that's helped to develop great results? So hopefully you guys have spotted that question popping up, and have you thought of something that was that you feel was innovative, or it might be something that was highly motivational that you introduced yourselves or saw somebody else introduce. Alex, I saw a big deep breath then, and you're obviously ready for one.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be fair, I was reading the chat, so you'll have to ask the question again. I'm not going to wing it.
Well, while you read, I might tell you one that we've just introduced, if that's okay.
Right. Is this the incentives program?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Good. We get to cover something I thought we'd missed.
Okay. So I thought I'd made this up and that I was a visionary, and then one of the people that's just joined our organisation tell me that Chipotle or Chipotle or however you want to pronounce it, the American fast food chain that are the burrito specialists, actually do something very similar. And so I have this project. So before I tell you what it is, I just want to tell you I called the project Chipotle and introduced it to all our managers. And then the very next thing that was in the news was Chipotle's profits had plummeted because they'd introduced E. coli into the restaurants. But it's too late, so I have to just go with it anyway and hope that that isn't a sign of things to come. Traditionally, our senior managers have been rewarded on profit. So they've been given a mini business plan that says you add up all of your people and we expect you to deliver, let's just make a number up, £1 million, and therefore your reward is about how close or how far you can exceed towards that £1 million, and the closer you get, the more we pay you, and the further you get past it, the even more we pay you. And I think that's been a traditional model in recruitment sales for as long as I've known it. And I don't think it works anymore. I don't think it does the things that we want it to do. It makes people make decisions that are purely based on financials. And as I said earlier, in this new world that we're in, it's not brand new, but in this new world that we are in, where there has to be more to life than how much money you can make. From January, so I'm going to make sure I see a recording of this and then answer the same question, because it's either going to be the most innovative thing that I've done that is brilliant and it's going to be groundbreaking, or it's going to be really stupid. But I think it'll be the former rather than the latter. The biggest part of the variable pay for our senior managers, our regional managers, our regional directors, and what we call our heads of practice will be about staff development. There's a matrix, so we have a project which is our pathway to promotions. There's a matrix that shows if you are a junior recruitment consultant or recruitment consultant, what are the things that you need to do to get yourself on the career ladder and progress. So some of those are financials, but lots of them are skills and attributes that you need to have learned and developed. You need to be a competent speaker. You need to be able to put a presentation together. You need to be a subject matter expert. You need to be a blogger. You need to be great at using, etc., etc., etc. We brought in a full-time training and development person, and of course we also use Alex to supplement that. And our managers and leaders are going to see their reward given every time somebody in their charge is promoted to the next level up. So theoretically, we could have everybody promoted twice in a year, because we've said it takes 6 months to work through a program. And we've introduced it. It feels like it's gone down a storm. All of our managers and leaders see it as something more interesting for them to be doing, see it as something that is innovative and groundbreaking. And of course, our staff see it as something that's going to help them stay with the journey. I'm hoping it will help towards keeping people interested and motivated and avoid attrition. But it means that we're all pushing for the same thing, which is upskilling our people, rather than just say, how much money have we made? And I'm going to cross my fingers and see that that's something that's going to change the landscape in our business.
So just quickly tell us, you're now attaching incentives to the progression of the staff rather than the profitability.
Yeah. So before you fall over, because when
I sound very simplistic.
yeah, before you fall over and think that I've gone mad, because when I explained it to our CEO and our CFO, they took a sharp intake of breath. What are you doing? Surely it's about financials. I think if we do it right, and bear in mind, for promotion, you have to be billing at a level that is above the level that you are billing at now. If we do this right, if we are focusing on upskilling our people and getting them through the career journey, I want my more senior people, the people who can affect the development and promotion of our staff, to be waking up every morning and thinking about that rather than thinking about how much money have I made today. So yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay, interesting.
I like the idea of rewarding managers for encouraging the development of their teams rather than just on their team's financial performance. That's a fantastic idea.
Well, we've done something similar to that, where when a new person comes on board, we give them a mentor, and the mentor gets a reward if the new person achieves something within a certain time frame, and that's helped to influence and encourage people to take more of a managerial role in the form of mentoring and coaching, and rather than seeing it as a distraction to what they do on a day-to-day basis. So,
Mark, could I mention something we're just looking at very quickly, which is similar to what Andy was talking about? Because we went to, me and the boss and one of the developers, we went to the Microsoft Future Decoded conference the other week, and the Innocent CEOs, the Smoothies company, was there. And over the years, we've been talking about this a fair bit, which is measuring values and rewarding employee behavior based on values. So it's very similar to what Andy said, and we're looking at a formal process of incorporating rewards and accountabilities on the behavior of employees and scaling that every year. So it's a very similar idea. So that's my contribution to Catherine's question. So I'll let Alex take over.
Well, I mean, I think what Andy's proposing is really innovative, and I think really all compensation schemes should drive a behaviour. And what Andy's basically saying is that the most important thing in your life, leaders, is helping your people be better, and from that, success will follow. So whilst I've got the odd, I'm conscious of time. So, but I really hope what Andy's proposed works. I'm sure it will work because it's driving the behaviour of managers that the number one thing in their lives at desk is getting their people successful, not driving fees, not driving activity, but just helping people do better. The activity will improve as a result of that, and ultimately the fees will as well. So I think that's something that I think a lot of people could, if they could just think about how they can get their managers more engaged in developing their people, then you don't need to spend as much money on external trainers because your managers will become the trainers, which is a great place to be.
Great stuff. I think that's a good point for us to wrap up on. I think we've just about run out of time, haven't we, Louis?
Yeah.
Do you want to, sorry, first of all, let me thank both of our guests today, Andy Lord and Alex Moyle. I think everybody will agree that's watched this show that there's been some really good stuff that's come out today, really impassioned views as well. And certainly I've got a few things that I'm going to take away, not stealing all of Andy's ideas and taking all of his glory. Louis, do you want to tell people what we've got coming up in the next, in the new year?
Yeah, this is the last one of the year, so we need to have a chat at some point, Mark, with Alan and Louise, and plan next year's shows. But I think it's been a fantastic year of shows. If you want to go back and have a look, they're all on YouTube. They're all on the colleague RecHangout blog. Every episode of the year, and this one will be sent out to all of those who registered. And you can take a look and watch the repeat if you like as well. And we'll also be sending out Louise's blog on the UK Recruiter, which will summarise a lot of the points that were made, but also bring in a few extra resources, like the chap you mentioned, Alex, and a bit of a summary about the plans. I don't know whether we can share this plan as well, Alex, or you sent Mark, but we can. Okay, so that'll be on there. So that's well worth going over. And just make sure you've registered, and you'll get an email from me with a link to all of this information. But thank you very much, chaps, for joining us. Mark, thanks for hosting in Alan's absence. Keep a lookout, and we'll see you all in the new year. Have a good Christmas.
Have a great break.
Thank you.